where I get a chance to chat with luminaries in eDiscovery and related areas. This broadcast is sponsored by Reveal Brainspace, the industry's leading AI eDiscovery platform. Don't forget to subscribe to watch me, George Socha, weekly with leaders in eDiscovery. Thank you for tuning in.
Good morning and welcome to eDiscovery Leaders Live, hosted by ACEDS and sponsored by Reveal. I am George Socha. I head up brand awareness at Reveal. This week we are broadcasting live from Legalweek in New York. We've got a stage and everything. It's not my office with a green screen behind me this week. My guest right now is April Dawson. April is with NCCU School of Law. And April, I'll let you introduce yourself more fully, and then we'll dive into the topic. So tell us who you are and what you do.
Yes, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me again this year. So I was able to be a guest last year. My name is April Dawson. I'm the Associate Dean of Technology and Innovation at North Carolina Central University School of Law. I'm also a professor of law. I've taught several subject matters. I've taught torts, constitutional law, administrative law. I am now teaching more law and technology courses. So I teach AI in the law. I've taught a blockchain in the law class. I've taught data science. I've taught legal technology, equity, and leadership. So I am immersed in the legal tech space.
This is not the law school of my day. It's not at all like the law school I went to. The world of legal education has changed and so. I got out of law school in 1987. Things have clearly changed. You don't show up, I hope, at a new law firm with a yellow pad, branded yellow pen, a branded pencil, and told go. What's happening in the world of legal education?
Yeah, so it has changed from when I graduated as well. I graduated in '94, and we didn't have email at the time. Very few folks had computers. And the practice of law has changed dramatically as well. And so in the legal education space, one of our challenges is keeping up with the changes in the practice of law. So we're doing better. At NCCU School of Law, we have a Technology, Law, and Policy Center, which is a new center, relatively new. It's been in existence for about 2 years. And there are other law schools that have legal-based institutes or programs. And so those are positive changes in the right direction, making sure that legal education stays on track with the changes that are happening in the practice of law.
So I will do the thing that you're never supposed to do at a deposition and ask the question I have no idea the answer to. Is there, by any chance, anything akin to a consortium of law schools working on these issues, or is everyone working in isolation at this point?
Yeah, no, I'm really glad you asked that question. So we have the American Association of Law Schools, which is a national organization. We've got member law schools. The vast majority of our law schools are participating in the American Association of Law Schools. And there is a section on technology, law, and legal education. And that section is a very collaborative group of like-minded professors and administrators who want to make sure that law schools are doing what we need to do to prepare our students for the current practice of law, not the way the practice of law existed or looked like when we were in law school or
Right.
even when we were practicing.
What does that then translate into for the students? What's different and new for them?
Yes. So as far as first year courses, those are, pretty typical.
Pretty locked in stone,
Yes,
right?
yes. These kind of doctrinal classes that you take. But what we're seeing is that students are able to take advantage of different types of courses that didn't exist when we were in law school. So there was no AI in the law course. There was no
Right.
course on blockchain and the law. Exposing students to tools that are being used. So like, eDiscovery platforms, contract lifecycle platforms.
Right.
And so students are able to get their hands, kind of in the mix with products that are being used by practitioners. So that's a change as well for the better.
At least for me, law school was in some ways fraught with challenges because I had no idea what I was getting into or what to expect about this. How do students respond and react to this new set of offerings?
You know, it's interesting because we're, of course, looking at legal education, you and I, from our lens of having been in decades ago.
Right.
But for the students, it's kind of what they expect, right? And so they have been exposed to technology, consumers of technology, pretty much all their lives. Also, we have students that are graduating now who started law school during COVID. So these were students that started online. And so, you know, those were challenges separate and apart from the types of challenges that we had. So for them, it's to be expected. They embrace it. They like that, you know, kind of their day-to-day interaction with technology also translates into law school and the practice of law. So they're all for it.
What are you able to do with the students to help them with this part of their adventure through law school?
Yes. So, you know, I think one of the best things that law schools can do is to bring outside folks in to talk to the students about, you know, what's going on in the real world.
Yeah.
Because law schools, we're siloed, right? And so you have professors of a certain age that are thinking about the practice of law from when they practiced decades ago that may not be consistent with reality. We're thinking about oftentimes of teaching the way we were taught. And I tell my students all the time, I'm not a practicing attorney right now. I was for many years. I did appellate work. I did a lot of litigation. I've always utilized and embraced technology, but I am not in the trenches right now. And so bringing in outside folks, I know you have taught a class on eDiscovery with a good friend of ours in Florida. And those types of experiences are incredibly valuable for the students because professors, we certainly bring a lot to the table, but we're not necessarily able to bring the current reality as it relates to the practice of law to the table. So we've got to bring outside folks in.
Where would you like to see all of this head? What's your future, your ideal future in this?
Yes, so I think what I would like to see more experiential classes. And I think we're getting better with that. So if you think about kind of the traditional law school curriculum, you've got the doctrinal classes, you have Socratic method, and you know there's some value to that. But really, we want to make sure that our students are practice ready when they graduate. And it doesn't make sense to me as an educator that my students would go into the practice of law and for the first time be exposed to technology. Our role is to make sure that our students are prepared to hit the ground running to the extent that they can, which means that legal education, we have to, one, not be afraid of technology ourselves. We have to be students of, we have to be students of progress. So we have to become familiar with Reveal and eDiscovery platforms. We don't have to master it, but we have to be aware of the tools that are being used so we can communicate that to our students.
Well, and I think you're really preparing your students for something even more than that, which is not just to show up in their new post-law school jobs familiar with these tools and capabilities, but in many instances, they are going to be more prepared, or at least I hope they're going to be more prepared than their new colleagues. So
right.
That they're going to come ready to bring something to the table that makes them of greater value.
Yes. And that's, I think right now, the law schools that are on the cutting edge, we're embracing it. So at Central, we have a law and technology certificate. So our students are able to do a deeper dive into the tech space. And so when they graduate, they're able to, kind of put that on their resume. We're also encouraging our students to get their CIPP certification while they're still in law school. And we've had several students who have done that already.
Good.
And so, being able to position our students so they're more competitive, even better prepared. And my guess is that within, maybe the next decade, NCCU School of Law won't be an anomaly. I think we'll see many more law schools kind of jumping on the bandwagon. And, I have to mention ChatGPT. Right. And of course, this is something that we're talking about here at this conference,
right? Yeah.
Talking about it all throughout the legal community, which means we have to talk about it in law school as well. Right.
And what does that discussion look like?
It is a it's a fascinating discussion because you can't put the horse back in the barn, right? And
That's
I
right.
don't think we want to, but I think we have to make sure that we help inform our students of how these tools can be used. So what students cannot do is use ChatGPT to produce content for which they are being assessed.
Right.
That is an ethical violation, and that will get you kicked out of law school, right? And we don't want an AI tool to be able to do that which we can't do. So
Right.
you have to learn how to write and analyze and research and produce, written product.
Yep.
But then we also have to let students know that within the legal community, it is being used. Well, how is it being used? How must it be used in a way that makes sure that lawyers fulfill their ethical obligation, right? How do you exercise judgment in the use of these tools? So that's the balance that we're engaged in right now in law schools. But, it's a good discussion to have. And I think one of the things that ChatGPT will do is those schools and those professors and administrators that have been resistant to technology, they're going to have to come in.
They're going to have to address it somehow.
Exactly.
Right? Both as the challenge that you talked about with the students using it to create content where they shouldn't, but also as yet another arrow in their quiver, another tool that they can use effectively.
Yes.
Well, April, thank you very much for joining us today. April Dawson is an associate dean and professor of law at NCC School of Law. I'm George Socha. This has been eDiscovery Leaders Live, hosted by ACEDS and sponsored by Reveal. April, thank you so much.
Pleasure.